feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place.
Welcome to the National University of Singapore Yong Lo Lin School of Medicine Healthy Longevity webinar. Thank you for joining us. We have Siim Land with us tonight. I'd like you to remind you first to use the Q&A function for the question. And tonight we have Joaquim Lutamela, a research associate from NUS with the Healthy Longevity Center. He will present his own study, uncovering the hidden dimensions of aging from PCA to variational autoencoders.
Thank you for the kind introduction. As mentioned, my name is Joaquim Lutamela, Research Associate at Associate Professor Jan Gruber's lab. And today I will share a brief journey into how we can use dimensionality reduction techniques such as principal component analysis and variational autoencoders to uncover hidden patterns in human aging. Aging is incredibly complex. It's not driven by a single factor, but a web of genetics, epigenetics, inflammation, metabolism, and many more factors. Each person's data can span hundreds of thousands of measurements. Think like genes, methylation marks, biomarkers, and other components. The challenge is, how do we make sense of this? We can see on the right how quickly our correlation map becomes difficult to understand. And these are just some clinical markers. Everything is connected. However, what we want is to distill aging into a few meaningful dimensions, axes that capture what really matters for health and lifespan. One tool researchers have used for this is principal component analysis, or PCA. PCA finds directions in the data where the variance is highest because variance can tell us a story. It's a workhorse in aging studies, helping reduce the number of variables while preserving as much information as possible. For example, in our study, Lineage2 providing actionable insights and benchmarking with epigenetic clocks, we can see that there is a strong association between several principal components and causes of death, indicated by the red color. However, PCA is linear. It assumes that the underlying structure of aging lies along straight lines. And we know aging doesn't work like that. Biological systems are full of feedback loops, tipping points, and nonlinear effects. And that's where variational autoencoders, or VAEs, come in. VAEs are neural networks that learn to compress data into a smooth, low-dimensional space, but they do it nonlinearly. This allows us to capture more complex, hidden relationships. For example, VAEs might detect that a subtle combination of inflammation markers and methylation patterns correlate with frailty or disease burden, something PCA might miss entirely. Another example is unrolling a Swiss roll. The Swiss roll is a nonlinear 3D model we can see on the bottom left. If we use PCA, we can see that it's unable to unroll it and data points overlap. VAEs are able to unroll it smoothly with less overlap, suggesting we can unpack nonlinear relationships using VAEs. VAEs also have another advantage. They are generative. Once trained, we can simulate what-if scenarios. For instance, what if a person's inflammation markers improve? How might that change their aging profile? Or what if someone had a rare methylation pattern? What would their risk of mortality be? These are all questions to be answered by the generative aspects of the VAE, and this gives us a way to experiment with biological aging in silico, beyond the limits of what's been observed in real data. So here's the big idea. Dimensionality reduction isn't just about simplifying data. It's about discovering the language biology uses to age us. While PCA gives us a solid first step, highlighting the obvious patterns, tools like VAEs help us dig deeper to uncover hidden nonlinear signatures of aging. And this could help us move from simply describing aging to actually understanding and influencing it. So dimensionality reduction isn't just compression, it's a search for the language of life. Big thanks to my supervisor, Associate Professor Jan Gruber, and collaborators Feng Sheng, Anastasia Nevedova, and Ruslan Gumarov. Thank you for your time. If you'd like to connect or learn more, feel free to reach out via LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Joachim. Very interesting progress in your work, and looking forward to hear more from your research. And now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Siim Land, who is an author, a speaker, health educator from Estonia. He has a background in anthropology, and he has written 8 or more now best-selling books on health, fitness, and longevity. Siim has actually built a global following through his science-based content on YouTube and Instagram, where he shares practical tips on everything from exercise to nutrition and sleep, stress, and even environmental health. And the topic of today would be implementing longevity science to everyday practice. Siim Land, the floor is yours, and looking forward to our discussion.
Hello. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And I'll give a short presentation about myself. And in the Fireside chat, we'll be discussing more about like practical implementations of healthy lifestyle. But yeah, as Vincenzo said, I'm an anthropologist, health educator, mostly an author. I've written 9 books by now, and they've all become quite popular. I have a pretty large social media following that I've built over the last over 7 years. I have 222,000 subscribers on YouTube and over 400,000 on Instagram, and most of my content is about what I am learning about health and longevity myself, and what I am doing for my own health, so to say. So it's a process of continuous education for myself, and trying to share that with the audience. So over the 7 years, the content has obviously evolved in a lot of different ways, and right now I'm mostly interested in longevity, and the biggest reason for that is for my own sake, trying to improve my own health and healthy aging preventively. And I was also ranked #1 at this website, the Rejuvenation Olympics, that use this DNA methylation based Dunedin pace test for speed of aging. I was #1, I think, last year. Not anymore, because I stopped taking the test, which we can also discuss later. But yeah, that was what people might have known me for as well. Some of my books, I've written a whole host of topics, like started with metabolic autophagy, which has become quite popular as a like a pathway related to healthy aging. I wrote it in 2019. Then Stronger by Stress, which talked about hormesis, so the idea of positive stressors being beneficial for your health, such as exercise and saunas and time-restricted eating. Then I wrote or co-authored The Immunity Fix with Dr. James DiNicolantonio, who's a cardiovascular researcher and doctor of pharmacy from the United States. He also has a pretty large following. We also co-authored The Mineral Fix, about the different minerals and their effects on health. Then we co-authored The Collagen Cure, which talked about collagen and glycine in health. Win, we co-authored, which focused on exercise and fitness specifically. Then we co-authored the blood sugar fix and the obesity fix, so about blood sugar optimization and weight loss. And my latest book is the longevity leap, which is the biggest one and the most comprehensive one that I've written, and it covers starting with the biology of aging and ending with a lot of different chronic diseases that are the cause of death for a lot of people, like heart disease, Alzheimer's, and kidney disease, etc. And our newest book is gonna be finished later this year, but it's about the supplements. So like what's the evidence behind different kinds of supplements? So I've covered pretty much all areas of health, and went into like pretty deep with all these topics with my co-author. The reason I got into health myself, I was quite young when I started being interested in health. I was probably like 21 years old back then. I'm 30 now, and the reason I got into it was because of my grandfather, who died to colorectal cancer when he was 36 years old. So that's very young, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to take care of my own health and follow like this more preventive health approach to not get sick in the first place. And he was very young at the time, and if he had been more, let's say, diligent or careful with his health, if he had done some tests or diagnostics for colorectal cancer, then he would have survived it. Because if you catch colon cancer early enough, then you can cure it like almost 100%. But he was so young, so no one ever like suspected that something was wrong with him, unfortunately. But I myself want to, prevent myself from following that same path. And a little bit of my, let's say, early adulthood and childhood. So I was born in this island in Estonia called Saaremaa, and spent most of the time outside, and developed like this very, I guess, natural, playful lifestyle as a child, just playing with dogs and in climbing trees, etc. I enrolled in the military, where I was doing military service in Estonia after high school. And after the military service, I started studying anthropology, but I also got into fitness, and not like some sort of professional fitness or bodybuilding or something like that. I just did a few shows as well in this amateur bodybuilding and junior bodybuilding, and got interested in exercise even during the military years. And after that, when I was studying anthropology, then I just got more into health. That's where I started my online presence, YouTube channel, and blog, and covered a lot of different topics about health. Mostly, again, what I was interested in myself, such as intermittent fasting, sleep tracking, exercise, fitness, blood tracking, etc. And yeah, over the last 7 years, I've built quite a large following. I've done a lot of public speaking across the world in different events. I've also gotten married a few years ago, and yeah, right now I'm just really interested in the longevity component of let's say, content creation and science. So I've also done a lot of experiments and tests on myself, done a lot of tracking. This is like my MRI picture from a few weeks ago that I actually did. I do like regular VO2 max tests, DEXA scans, blood tests, etc. Mostly for my own curiosity. I don't think like everyone needs to be so thorough with their health tracking, but I do it for myself, for my own curiosity, and obviously it's good content for people to also learn from my own results, what I share online. And here's like a little bit of like overview from my last blood marker tests. So I'm like in very good health in terms of physical fitness, body composition, and my blood markers as well. So I have a very high VO2 max and very high muscle strength as well, muscle mass, which just goes to is achieved mostly through physical fitness and exercise, obviously, which I've done over the last 12 years consistently and regularly. I have like very good blood markers as well, and some of the ones that we know are associated with increased risk of chronic diseases such as CRP and hemoglobin A1C and triglycerides and insulin. They're all in the what I consider the optimal ranges for the lowest risk of mortality, or what's associated with the lowest mortality risk, based on the studies that I've researched myself. And yeah, they're all in the top 1 or top 5% of the most optimal ranges. And we can discuss these blood markers later, or how can people improve them. So I think blood markers are very interesting and useful because they reflect your inner health, and they also project your trajectory with your health. If you know you have elevated blood sugar, then you're heading towards diabetes, at least if you don't turn it around. And diabetes is one of the major risk factors for heart disease and mortality as well. So if you measure your blood markers, you see that you have elevated hemoglobin A1C or elevated fasting glucose or whatever it is, then you can do something about it and you can reverse it. And in so doing, you also reverse this trajectory that your health is heading towards. So a little bit of an overview, quick overview of my own routines. So I don't have like a very crazy, neurotic, intense routine, at least in my opinion. But I do have nailed down the basics, the foundations, the fundamentals of a healthy lifestyle quite solidly. So I do about twice a week cardiovascular exercise for 60 minutes. So this is a zone 2 cardio that is relatively low intensity. I do resistance training with weights or calisthenics about 3 times a week, 45 minutes each session. I do the sauna 4 times a week for 20 minutes each. I walk around 12,000 steps every day, which in total takes 2 hours of walking. And this includes obviously walking around the house and walking to the store or walking the dog or something like that. So yeah, it's not that difficult if you just add up all of the steps that you do take throughout the day. And then walking is a very easy way to just improve your health and increase your activity levels. And my diet is not super strict. It's about like 80-20 whole foods. I try to avoid ultra processed foods, and I try to minimize added sugars, etc. But I'm not like very crazy about it either because I exercise a lot, so my body is just utilizing the carbohydrates and sugars very efficiently. So I'm not like really, let's say, afraid of any foods. I can eat almost anything and stay in a good health, and mostly because of exercising a lot and being in otherwise good health. But my diet consists about like 1.6 grams per kilogram per day of protein, which is 0.73 grams per pound, which is the optimal intake, the upper threshold for the muscle growth. So if you consume more, you don't see additional muscle growth benefits. But if you eat less, then you're leaving some gains on the table, so to say. I have a pretty high fiber intake, so I eat a lot of vegetables and beans and legumes and fruits and berries and tubers. So I'm getting at least over 40 grams of fiber every day. And the biggest thing I just pay attention to when it comes to diet is the protein and fiber, and then keeping my body fat percentage around 10 to 12%. If I see that my body fat percentage starts to go too high, then I just reduce my food intake. If it gets too low, then I increase it. So like the sweet spot for men is around 10 to 12%. For women, it's something like 20 to 25%. So women, it matters a lot less how much body fat you have. But for men, it seems to matter a bit more. And I sleep around 7.5 to 8.5 hours. I don't drink any alcohol, and it's a zero. And socializing, I think, is also important component of longevity that tends to be underlooked in a lot of cases. And I'm married, so I get to socialize a lot every day. We both work from home, me and my wife, so we spend most of the day together. But just socializing with friends and family members is also a big priority in my health routine, so to say. A few supplements I take. I don't take a lot of supplements. I take collagen, glycine, hyaluronic acid, mostly for the skin anti-aging benefits. Astaxanthin also has UV protective effects. Taurine has benefits on metabolic health and exercise performance. Creatine is researched for muscle strength and power mostly, but it also has benefits on muscle mass and the brain. Magnesium for stress and sleep, and omega-3s for increasing my omega-3 index, which has been seen to be associated with lower mortality and lower Alzheimer's. So I try to keep my omega-3 index above 8%, and I take around 3 grams of omega-3s for that. But yeah, I don't take like a ton of supplements. I take only the ones that I would benefit from and the ones that actually have evidence behind them. And yeah, that's it, my short presentation. If you want to learn more about me, then I'm at Siim Land on all the platforms, and my website is siimland.com. And I guess we'll do a bit more Q&A in the Fireside chat.
Thanks, Tim, for your very interesting talk and for actually showing us something about, about your daily routine and how you bring on the concept of longevity for you. So perhaps, we can start with the, few questions going first on general concepts and then going really specifically to your routines and the reason behind some of these choices. So, we're always talking about longevity in the broader term, right? So you said, you study your own personal quest for longevity. So, let's say on a broader term, what is actually, for instance, in your opinion, longevity? What is it to you? How would you define it?
Yeah, so for me, longevity is mostly about health span. So it's about extending this healthy window and adding healthy years to your life. If you do extend your health span, you stay healthier for longer, then I think it's reasonable to say that you will also live a little bit longer than the average person who doesn't have good health. But I'm not talking about radical life extension. So these routines that I have right now, like the exercise and the diet and the supplements, they're not going to take me beyond like 120. We would need something more effective for that, which we don't know yet. So there's no evidence that taking certain supplements would extend your life beyond 120 right now. Maybe there are some geroprotective drugs out there that could potentially do that, but currently I'm not taking them because I'm analyzing, okay, what is the cost to benefit ratio for my age right now? I don't probably need to do a lot of radical experiments. I don't need to do some gene therapies in hopes that it might work. I can wait for the next 20, 30 years, and by that time we will have something more proven or more evidence-based for dramatic life extension. So right now I'm just trying to stay healthy for as long as possible with the methods that we know and have shown to work for extending healthy lifespan.
Yeah, I see. So you are more on indeed, yeah. Let's say you're not so much on the side of the life extensionist yet. So for instance, is that what you think it could be one of the misconceptions in your opinion about longevity, or especially looking at social media, people are talking about things like, in 5 years, 10 years from now, we will be living, much, much longer, extending our lifespan. But what do you think are the misconceptions at the moment?
Yeah, I am let's say futurist and semi-transhumanist in that sense, that I would like humans to live 200, 300 years, right? So I'm not against the idea, and I'm rooting for science to figure out ways to achieve that. But I'm also like realistic that currently there's no evidence that we are heading, or that we are close there, that in 5 or 10 years even we would break this longevity escape velocity that would reach us, that would take us to immortality or extend our lifespan dramatically. So yeah, I'm just trying to be realistic, that not creating hype around it if it's not clear it's going to happen, right? So maybe it's gonna happen. Maybe we will figure out something in 4 years, and then the 5-year time frame would be correct. But as of now, there's no evidence that it would work.
Right. So yeah, essentially maintaining the ground, your own body, let's say, and mind stable and hopefully healthy in the light of what will come next, that may allow us to push it further in terms of benefits. So regarding then the approach that you're using right now, right? So you also wrote books indeed about the intermittent fasting, and then you have a book coming up on supplements, and you say you're taking supplements yourself, and we saw your kind of daily schedule, right, between exercise and diet. One thing I didn't see in your daily, let's say, routine is about your diet is, are you at the moment integrating also intermittent fasting regimen with, for instance, your exercise and supplement regimens? Do you think they can coexist, or there are things that you have to pay attention to in order not to lose benefits from one of these interventions?
Mm-hmm. I've been doing intermittent fasting for probably 10 years in different forms. Back then, I started with the 16-8 method, so fasting for 16 hours and eating within 8 hours, usually like 2 meals in that time frame. For the last 6 or 7 years, I've been doing some form of 1 meal a day, but it's adjusted that I have my dinner after my exercise, but in the daytime before the exercise, or in the morning or / noon time, I have just a protein snack or a protein shake to support the exercise and the physical performance. So I've tried regular 1 meal a day as well, where I just eat 1 meal, but found that it just gets in the way of a muscle growth and strength development. So just doesn't make sense for me to just restrict myself to 1 meal precisely, and I just have the protein shake. Sometimes it's some sort of a protein snack or something else like that before the exercise, and that has enabled me to still make progress in strength training and gym despite eating 1 meal a day. So I think most people don't need to do that. I just do it out of preference and convenience. I save a lot of time in the daytime, and I just eat once a day. That works for me right now. But I think the 16-minute method by itself is already very useful. And if I weren't doing this method, what I'm doing right now, I would do the 16-8 method of intermittent fasting. I do try to stop eating food around 4 or 5 hours before bed. So over the last few years, I've changed that. Initially, I would have had a later dinner, but now I'm eating around 4 or 5 p.m. my last meal, and that has had like a positive effect on sleep mostly.
And so, like, still remaining on this point and connecting more also with your exercise or supplement routine, for instance, did you actually, so now at the moment you have found this, let's say, regime that works for you. So did you do like several attempts, meaning like, for instance, you started only by changing your diet, because you have always been exercising as well, right? So my question is, have you sort of staggered your approach and see where, if the benefit would be additional from changing your protocols? Did you notice a way that you could really measure and say, well, with this diet, with this exercise now, and doing this and adding this kind of supplements, I can see an incremental improvement in my, let's say, health span?
Yeah, so if I'm measuring like blood markers or something like that, then I can notice some supplements having an effect. So one example was homocysteine that I measured last year. So it was 11 micrograms per liter, and it was a bit higher than would be optimal. And I started taking TMG, trimethylglycine, to support that, and it dropped it to 9 micrograms. And I took 2 grams to achieve that, and then I increased it to 4 grams to see if it would provide additional benefits, and it didn't. So the 2 grams was like the ceiling for lowering homocysteine, and then I did hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which dramatically lowered it to 5 micrograms per liter, which would be more optimal. So that would be like an example where I like tested it and tweaked it with supplements, and then added hyperbaric oxygen therapy for the more optimal results. And another example would be like lipids. Once I've reduced my saturated fat intake and increased my fiber intake, then my LDL and ApoB have dropped also quite dramatically, and achieved like most optimal levels for those. So just adjusting the diet, you can see different blood markers improve. And obviously you can't say that just because I have these lower levels of ApoB, for example, right now, that it would somehow extend my lifespan. But based on the studies, we can say that it is associated with lower heart disease risk. And the same with blood sugar as well. Like having slightly more optimal or lower blood sugar isn't proof that I'm going to like dramatically extend my life or live longer, but it is associated with lower risk of diabetes. And my thought about it is that to live longer, to extend your health span and add a few extra years to your life, you just need to avoid these chronic diseases that most people die from, such as heart disease and kidney disease and diabetes and cancer and Alzheimer's. And you can modify those risks of those diseases with your lifestyle. And the step between your lifestyle and this chronic disease is a particular set of blood markers and other biomarkers that you can track that predicts this risk and predicts this trend. So if I always have very good blood sugar markers and very good inflammation markers, and I have low body fat and low visceral fat, then my future risk of diabetes is pretty low compared to someone else who would have elevated blood sugar and elevated inflammation and elevated visceral fat. So optimizing these key biomarkers would reduce the risk of these chronic diseases. And if you don't get these chronic diseases, then the idea is that you would be expected to live also longer. Of course, there might be some unpredictable scenario that happens. You get some sort of unpredictable genetic disorder or cancer caused by some environmental factors or something else, or you just get hit by a bus, right? So you can't predict all of it, but by just controlling these blood markers that you can control, you're giving yourself the biggest likelihood of living longer. That's my rationale behind it.
Yeah, no, exactly. There are not things that we cannot control, unfortunately, still. So yeah, so in that sense, for instance, you're talking about the blood markers, right? But you also have, of course, I think measured your actually biological age, right? So what kind of tools are you currently using based on your, let's say, review of the field and your own experience? Which ones are advisable for someone that also wants to start measuring their biological age, given the fact that a lot of these are still quite, let's say, difficult in terms of how reliable they are and how consistent they are, right?
Yeah, I think most or a lot of my experience with the biological age test is that they give all different results. So you don't know which one is accurate or which one you would want to refer to as your biological age. Usually people would refer to as the lowest score. What is their
Right.
biological age?
But I think, but you apply probably longitudinal measurements, right? So that's the thing where you want to aim for and see consistency over there, right?
Yeah, if you just use only one test, then you can see some longitudinal effects. But the problem is that I think Matt Kaberlin did an experiment where he
Right.
took multiple these tests and twice at the same time, and the ones that he took at the same time still gave different results. So I guess the technology is a bit premature for at least the commercial tests. He does say that the tests, these clocks used in research, are more reliable and more useful, but the commercial tests tend to be widely inaccurate and can give a lot of different inconsistent results. So, and especially if you test while you are sick or if you have some underlying infection, you might think that you're actually normal, you don't have any symptoms, but you do the test and you have some, even like jet lag or sleep deprivation, then you might get a different result than you otherwise would. And then it just means that you take the test, you pay for the test, right? And these tests aren't necessarily cheap. You pay a few $100s for this test and you get a bad result just because you didn't know how to prepare properly, or even if you tried to prepare properly, you didn't cover all the boxes in terms of preparation. You might just had some sort of, I don't know, lead poisoning or something that you don't feel, and it offset your test result. So I would like them to be accurate, and I would, like us to have something that is reliable, but based on my own experience and what other people have said, then right now wouldn't use any specific biological age tests, in my opinion.
And getting set to another, a little bit, sometimes hype, this is probably the last question before the Q&A. Let's say a bit of a topic that is sometimes hyped, sometimes it's supported by, let's say, that's what we try to do in terms of preclinical and clinical science. So you have said that you are not particularly crazy about supplements. You have a limited list of supplements that you're using, right? So what's your perspective then on compounds, let's say, yes, drugs or compounds such as rapamycin, metformin, NAD boosters, spermidine, senolytics. There is a wider range of these things that are supposed to tackle the hallmarks of aging, right? So do you feel that there is a lot of hype around this, or some of this, in your opinion, based on your experience, again, as a user or on the books you wrote, where you feel there is more consistency?
Yeah, a few of them are quite interesting. I do think rapamycin is something that has the biggest potential of being like a geroprotective drug, established geroprotective drug. It just would like some more studies to be done around it, but I hopefully we'll get them in the few years. Metformin, I also think, is a net positive as a pharmaceutical that would have a positive effect on aging. In mice, it hasn't been like consistently shown to extend lifespan, but just by improving metabolic health, it probably has like some positive effect on health span, and that would also have some benefits on longevity and lifespan. And some of the other more like common supplements out there, a few of them I am interested in, like calcium alpha ketoglutarate, and a few other ones. NAD boosters can be useful as well in some situations, but they're not, again, like some miracle molecules as some people would like to think, that they're not necessarily like lifespan supplements that would extend your lifespan. They might improve certain aspects of your health or fitness, for example, with NAD boosters, but that's pretty much it. Whereas some of these other ones, like resveratrol or spermidine, they tend to have a lot more limited evidence for their longevity benefits.
So you choose the ones that, for instance, you have currently chosen. You have, for instance, taurine, which is relatively recent in terms of its connection to actual longevity. I'm wondering, what was your choice, for instance, in particular for that one, which seemed one of the only ones that seemed a bit, like newer, on the newer side of that, or exotic, if you want, from the supplements that you're taking at the moment.
Which one? Which one?
The taurine.
Taurine. Yeah, so taurine was the one that was recently seen to extend lifespan in mice. And I looked at the human clinical trials as well. So it has evidence for metabolic syndrome, so helps with metabolic health in people who have poor metabolic health mostly. I don't have it, but I take it mostly for the exercise benefits. So there's also evidence that it supports exercise performance, like endurance and strength. So that's the reason I decided to take it. So yeah, and it's a bonus that it also extended my lifespan in mice. So I'm not expecting it to extend my lifespan, but it's a kind of nice bonus that hey, maybe it might have some benefits on that. But the biggest reason is for the exercise, and the same with astaxanthin. So astaxanthin also seen to extend lifespan in the ITP in mice, but I'm taking it mostly for the skin protective benefits. So it has UV protective effects, so it can delay photoaging
Right.
and
This you are
improve
still,
skin wrinkles.
I mean, this is still through injection, right? So ingestion, sorry. So most of you're not doing any, for instance, interventions directly at the topical level at the moment, right? It's just supplements
Right.
you are ingesting, right? So I think also for me, I think, I'm somehow doing my own routine, but I do think there are certain mechanisms or things that we need to understand about these compounds, especially when they are ingested versus topical application, that we need to also consider. So, for instance, collagen is also an interesting one that you are using, I think, currently, right? So that one, you use it mostly for, let's say, claims related to skin health, or I think, you also use it for other benefits for people that are interested in this one in particular.
I take it, yeah, for skin. So there's a lot of clinical trials that helps with skin wrinkles and skin elasticity. And with collagen, it starts declining already quite young. So in your 20s already, it starts declining. So I'm just starting it early.
Right. And since you mentioned about skin, maybe this really now my last question probably. You mentioned, your supplements for protection for your skin, assuming also, protection from photo damage and so on. And, you talked about longevity, about also, environmental health, staying, also in contact, let's say, in terms both of socializing, meaning also interaction with the environment, right? So with people outside, also in the open environment. And so there's a lot of focus now around the exposome, right? So the environment where we live, the interactions that we have with the environment. And as part of your longevity routine, how much do you actually time spent outside in the nature? How important is that in your routine? And how also, for instance, things about like mental health, right? So there are still these two aspects you mentioned, they're important, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more on that before we go to the Q&A.
Mm. Yeah, I do think spending time outside is important, quite important for mental health and physical health. If you're always avoiding the sun, for example, then I think that's a net negative for health. Even though spending too much sun might accelerate skin aging, it would have a net negative on your overall health, so to say. So, I'm just being mindful about spending time outside in the sun. I don't go out when it's, midday with the hottest sunlight. I try to go outside to the sun when in the morning and in the evening. So the sunrise and the sunset. So those are the best times, in my opinion, for the benefits of the sun without excessive skin damage. And other times, going to forests and spending time in nature. I grew up in the countryside, so I
Right.
just love spending time in nature, and I tried to go there quite often. So taking the dog for a walk in there, or riding a bike in nature, or something like that. So I like it, and I try to do it as much as possible, like a little bit of every day. So maybe even 5-10 minutes a day is enough for me.
Right, I see. Yeah. So, and what about very last thing, right? You said you socialize by also being married and so on. So, how important or how do you think actually having a healthy relationship is affecting your health span, right, and therefore your longevity? And how much a negative one do you think can have a negative impact in that sense?
Yeah. So if my relationship was having negative effects on my mental health, then I would just end it, or I would think it's not worth it to be in a toxic or a harmful relationship for your health and mental health and happiness. But after getting married and getting together with my wife, it has had like a tremendous positive effect on my happiness and life satisfaction. So I think that if you do have a good relationship and a happy relationship, then it's going to significantly improve the quality of your life, even if it didn't have any effect on the quality of your health. But I do think that it has positive effects on your health as well, mostly because of trying to take care of yourself more because you're with someone else. You're trying to live longer together, etc., spend more time together. So just having that will improve your physical health. But even if it didn't improve the physical health, the quality of your life is going to be much higher if you know not even if it's not like a partner, just friends and family.
Right. So, and as they say from other studies that have been done at the clinical level, happiness is actually a very important component for a healthy longevity and happy life, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's something to never forget. I mean, to take care really at the level of mental well-being and happiness in general. So with this, probably I think we can already start introducing the Q&A session. So we will have for that Queen Dean, who is a PhD candidate in the NUS School of Medicine, and she will be moderating the Q&A. The floor is yours, Queen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us your routine and a lot of valuable information that we maybe also can apply to our routine. So just to start with the Q&A, our first question for you is, how often do you check in with your clinicians, or is this all self-assess?
Yeah, so I don't have a doctor or a clinician that I work with. I research everything myself, and obviously I consult doctors when I need to. So testing my eyes, or reading some MRI scans or something like that. Like, I'm not qualified to read those scans myself, so I obviously have to consult with the professionals in that field. But when it comes to general lifestyle routines, my supplement routines, and dietary routines, etc., then I'm the best person for my own health to make those routines. So yeah, because I'm been doing this for 10 years. I'm every day researching and reading about these topics myself, so I'm pretty qualified to improve my own health, at least like on the lifestyle level. If I were to get diagnosed with some particular chronic disease or some other ailment, then obviously I would have to consult with professionals in that field.
So for the next question is there a cultural propensity for self-medicated or self-care, or are you an extreme outlier?
I presume like in Estonia, where I live, well, Estonia doesn't have a very like advanced health culture. People here are obviously a lot healthier than in America, for example, um, because there's less obesity, there's less diabetes, etc. People tend to eat more traditional diets, so less processed food and a bit more homemade meals. Also because of people, they want to spend less on restaurants, etc. So they'll just eat at home most of the time. So that's the reason why the average Estonian might be healthier than the average American, mostly because of being less overweight and less diabetic and eating more traditional meals. There's also an element of like exercise that is a bit more advanced, I think. Like if you walk around Tallinn here in the capital, then you would see some exercise equipments, a lot of walking paths, and places for people to cycle and people to exercise. So it's very easy to stay physically active here because of the infrastructure. It's promoted by the government to have a lot of physical movements and places to do the physical movements. Whereas in places like, even in Sicily, like when I was on honeymoon with my wife in Sicily, there was like no places to do exercise almost at all. There's no pull-up bars or anything like that. Mostly people walk, right? People, that's healthy for you, but there's no deliberate place for people to exercise. Whereas here it's a lot more common. But the average Estonian is not, obviously as interested in health as I am. They try to eat healthy, but it's not a very, like, the traditional meals are healthier than fast food, obviously, but it's not some sort of Mediterranean style superfood diet. It's still, potatoes, meats, fish, fruits, and ice cream people eat, and some candies and chocolate, etc. But not like super heavily processed.
There's another question for you. As you engage your audience and as you look toward longevity, who are the people who participate in your retreats, and how old are they? Or is it very much older?
Yeah, so I do have like a retreat with a clinic, and they are from all around the world, actually. So last time we had people from South Africa, Argentina, Canada, UK, Finland, Australia, Spain, Italy. So very international crowd, which makes sense that I have an international audience as well on social media. So just people who join me there would be from all across the world, and the age is also very wide. You have some people in their 30s, others even up to 70s and 80s. So people are interested in their health, and I try to make content that would give insights and knowledge on different age groups as well. So there are obviously some age-specific things that people need to keep in mind, like the health and diet routine of a 20-year-old would probably be different than an 80-year-old. although the principles and the pillars are the same, like, exercise and eat healthy, sleep and relationships, they're very similar. They're just a few details are a bit different. Like maybe the 80-year-old needs a bit more protein than a 20-year-old, or they need to do more resistance training than a 20-year-old, or something like that. They might need a few other supplements that a 20-year-old doesn't need. So the fundamentals are the same, but the details are a little bit different.
Then when you engage with your audience, I know that a lot of them may start with a very good intention, but then they struggle with consistency when they adopt a new or healthy lifestyle. So is there any thing that is maybe a way for them to overcome that and then make sure that all this healthy habit will be incorporated like for long term?
Yeah. Well, the biggest reason why anyone would stick to some sort of a new routine would be having a bigger purpose or why. So if you have a very big why or a reason to do what you're doing, then you will be able to, or then you will find the reason to do it. If you don't have a reason, then you would just revert back to the old habits and stop following the consistent routine. So some people, they might get diagnosed with cancer or diabetes, and that's like a wake-up call to them. I need to take it seriously now. I can't go back to my old habits, and that's big enough of a reason for some people to stay consistent with it. Obviously, a lot of people still, revert back to their old habits, and unfortunately, they will probably die faster as well as a result of that. But if you have, some sort of a wake-up call or some sort of a realization that you, like a mental switch in your head, then you can use that to give yourself more motivation and a bigger purpose to stay consistent. So for me, it was my grandfather's story. It was also from a fitness related things. It was just also trying to get fitter and improve my physical fitness. So that was like another reason I kept exercising that much. But yeah, it was a big reason for me to take it more seriously and preventive. Like it was a realization that I don't have exceptional longevity genetics. No one in my family has lived over the age of 80, even not to mention 100. So in order for me to stay healthy and live longer, then I need to be more careful or more diligent with my lifestyle compared to someone else.
So for people who are very busy, what would you say is the most like absolute non-negotiable daily habit that would yield the most significant returns for health span and longevity?
For non-negotiables, I would say doing some sort of movement. It can only be like a 5-minute movement, just a 5-minute exercise or something like that. That would already be enough, but some sort of movement. It can be walking, can be 5 minutes of calisthenics, can be 5 minutes of sprinting up and down the stairs. So if you're short in time, then you can make up for it with greater intensity. So if you just have 5 minutes to work out, then you should just work out for 5 minutes straight with as minimal rest in between. But if you have an hour to work out, then yeah, the rest times in between the exercises can be a bit longer because you have more time. But if you just have 5 minutes, then just do burpees or jumping jacks or sprint back and forth for 5 minutes straight, then you would get a very similar effect in a compressed time.
I was curious about there's a question from Yeon Jin Kang, Siim Land, regarding your story about your grandfather. But so the question is, since he passed away from colorectal cancer, do you think that genetics may affect you too? And he's curious to know because your supplement list doesn't include probiotics or anything for gut health. So how do you account for that?
It might be genetics. I do eat a lot of fiber and fermented foods, so I do think I have like very good gut health. I don't have any gut problems or anything like that. And I have taken like stool tests and I haven't done a colonoscopy yet, but I've done some stool tests as initial screening and I don't have like anything to worry about it in that scenario. But I do consume a lot of fiber and fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut.
Would you recommend that young scientists start creating content on social media, or do you think there are better ways to share their work and build a presence, especially with AI tools now available?
I do think that scientists should make social media content. Obviously, they should also do science, but one of the criticisms about health influencers like me is that that we might get some things wrong or something, but people gravitate towards, I'm not talking about myself, but even like some other influencers, because we fill the void or the vacuum that people want to learn about these health topics and longevity topics. So and there's no so if there were to be like some very credible scientists making that content, then they would also consume that, right? So it's just that there's like a vacuum that gets filled with a lot of different people. Now, is it a good or bad thing? That's for everyone else to decide. but yeah, like if the scientists were to create a lot more content, then they would also become more popular in that sense, and there would be less confusions about some of these health topics. I mean, like Andrew Huberman is a good example of that. He's probably the most popular health quote-unquote influencer out there. He's not an influencer, he's a PhD, but he's filling the role of an influencer by creating health educational content, and he tends to be more scientific and more accurate than some TikTok influencer, right? So it's just an example of someone who has done it very successfully, and he's actually one of the most popular, most known health voices online. So it shows that you can do it in a very more scientific manner and with scientific credentials.
You have led some longevity retreats for people. What has been the biggest breakthrough or most impactful discovery for participants?
Well, I guess one good thing about the retreat, what I was doing, was that whenever you got a particular result, you could have just booked a session with another specialist pretty much the next day or in the 2 days. Whereas in America or Europe, it would take months or weeks to get a booking for a doctor. So I was doing it in India, and you could just like get a very fast booking with a specialist. Like I did an MRI and it showed I had some intracranial pressure a little bit, which I thought was maybe because I was doing a lot of handstands before the MRI in my workout, so maybe that created some pressure in my head. But I immediately the next day went to an eye doctor. I did some eye tests, and everything was fine. So that's just one example that if there were to be something serious that you detect, then you can get some very fast feedback about it as well.
So that's a good way to end by saying, something that you mentioned before. Starting early and preventing is better than curing later on, right? So I think that's a perfect way to close, this message for today about how to continue our longevity quest. Thanks, Quinn, and thanks, Siim, for your to be here with us tonight. That was really great. And with this, I want to remind the participants to use the chat function and choose the panelists and all attendees option to leave comments and feedback so that everyone can view them. And also mention the next longevity webinar, which will be on June 19th with Associate Professor Youssef Idagdur for a topic that will be announced soon. And we will leave you with a final video where every day a change starts from within. Before we end today's session, we'd like to leave you with a short video that encourages us to aging through a different lens. Meet Mindy, whose work offers a refreshing perspective on growing older.
Why don't they do discounts for old people going into nightclubs? They do it for students. Why not for pensioners? One of the big important things about the image library is that it gives organisations, individuals, all kinds of projects access to images that show who we really are and what we really do. I wanted to be part of the image library because it really matters. I want to see more photographs of old people being stylish, funny, demonstrating that they've got real lived experience. It's not about looking younger, it's about looking like who you are. When I see older people being poorly represented, I feel it's such a failure of imagination. I can still dance for 5 hours without a break. If you don't see those things represented, how do you know that's possible?
I'm feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down.